Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Beyond Sports Broadband edition with me, Digvijay Singh. The man I'm interviewing today can be introduced in many ways. I can call him a former coach of the Indian hockey team. I can refer to him as a hockey Olympian. I can also call him or refer to him as the husband of an Olympic gold medalist or someone who is soon to be the father of an Olympian. Michael Nobbs, many hats you wear, but most importantly, all those hats are around one game, the game of hockey.
Correct. It's the one I love and the one we all love.
Yes. How have you been, Michael? How have you been? How's this lockdown been treating you? I'm told right now Australia is slowly opening up, and Sydney, where you are, has actually allowed you to go back on the roads.
It's been tough initially because everybody's been scared and wondering what to do, and it's such a virulent problem. But we've managed to cope here really well. So different places have been opening up clearly now. But the really good news is that we're opening up stage 2, which means 10 of us can get together in a family. We can go out and we can start to run around and exercise, and that's that's fantastic. Can't wait.
And I'm told that you took advantage of these rules, and the moment this got over, you were back on the hockey turf coaching some kids.
Look, yeah, because kids love it and I love it too. I mean, this is a really interesting time because I thought you never get time to develop because everyone's playing games and going to championships and worried about points and relegation and all those. Here's a really good time to just get some kids out there and teach them, why we like hockey, how to improve, and just have a bit of fun, And because we're going to have a short season now here in Australia, it's really ideal time just to play the game for the hell of it, just play for fun, which is what we all did when we first started. So coaching kids, I just love doing that. It's great fun.
Yes, but what I can't imagine, Michael, is you being the outdoor person that you are. How did you manage staying cooped up inside one flat in Sydney for so long?
I don't cope very well at all. Fortunately, with technology these days and so many friends around the world in hockey and yourself as well, that we can chat and whiles away the time, and we can kind of think about what we can do when we get out of this cage we're in. And we're out. We're having fun now. Don't know about you guys, but we're there.
Yeah, we're locked up. We're locked up. But I was trying to read up on what Australia has been doing, and each state in Australia has dealt with the pandemic in a very different way. But even though they're opening up now, what is exemplary to see is that you've managed to keep the fatalities to just about 100. I think that's something which has been outstanding, hasn't it, considering the big numbers around the world?
Well, this social distancing, and everybody is really careful with each other. They show respect for distance, and they haven't been doing some silly things like we see in other countries. We actually kind of respect each other and go out of our way. It's not to, and it's been really good too. That's made a huge difference where people are careful. And I think it's given the health authorities the opportunity, if something breaks in some particular old people's home or somewhere, that they can get onto it really quickly. And we've just got this new Corona app that we're all using, and I think 4 or 5 million people are now starting, and it'll be live, I think, in the next week or two. I mean, that'll make an enormous difference so that people can see where's an outbreak. Let's jump onto it quickly.
We have one of those apps as well over here in India, the Arogya Setu app, and it shows you if you are around someone and who's probably may not be a coronavirus patient, but is showing the symptoms and stay away. But how soon do you think Australia will completely open up? Because Australia and New Zealand haven't seen that many rises, and whatever rises I'm reading about are mostly in care homes. So do you think that in the next couple of months everything will be back to normal? Obviously, with the kind of regulations in place.
Look, I don't think it'll get back to normal for a long time till there's a vaccine. But I think we're moving to stage 3, which means a lot more social gatherings can be held, and some of our national sports and even our club sports. We've heard, I think July the 18th, we'll be allowed to actually start to play club sports again and school sports and stuff like that. So once that starts to open up, I think we'll get a clearer path as to actually see how do we move forward in terms of national games and all those things. But overseas travel to play games, I think that's out for a while. I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay, you're saying it's out for a while because there's a burning debate right now. Because you had the Women's T20 World Cup just before this outbreak happened, and you have the Men's T20 World Cup coming up at the end of the year. There's a lot of
Mm.
question mark over that tournament will go on. As somebody who stays in Sydney and has a place in Perth as well, what do you think? Will this tournament go ahead from a health and safety perspective, or even if it goes ahead, you won't have spectators? What are you sensing being
Oh.
on the ground?
Well, from what I've talked to quite a few of my friends, I think they will go ahead. But I mean, the testing is the key to make sure that the virus originally came from outside the country and we locked the country down. So the testing to make sure everybody is completely virus free when they come in, I think is the real key to it. What we do here is we're opening up the place now because simply because of our testing and what we're doing, we don't have particularly too much of this virus here at the moment. But it doesn't take much to spread it. It just takes one person who doesn't do the right thing coming into the country. As we had with that Ruby Princess ship that came to Australia, that was the prime out cause of this whole virus. So I think it will go ahead. I think the crowds, maybe by about that time, we should be okay. Keeping my fingers crossed anyway.
Or maybe we won't see a full MCG or a full SCG. We will have perhaps people, but scattered all over. Maybe that's the way to go because life has to move on.
Yeah, look, and also people want to protect themselves as well, so they will respect this social distancing thing as well. So you'll get probably groups of a family close together and there'll be a distance between that family, between others. So I think you're right, it won't be a full MCG, but it can hold a few people. We'll be fine. It'll be good
Yes, more
fun.
than 100,000 people actually. So yeah,
Correct.
even if it's 30, 40,000, that's good enough. You get the atmosphere. Most
we
grounds in the
yell
world
we,
don't have that many.
we yell loudly. We'll be fine.
Yes, yes, you do. But world sport has been tossed around badly due to this pandemic. But slowly, signs are emerging, Michael, that things are changing. The German football Bundesliga is starting
Yes.
on the 16th. So I was speaking to one of our football pundits, and he was saying that it's probably going to be a test case. Everyone around the world is watching, especially in football. If the Bundesliga goes off without a hitch, you're going to get a domino effect. Bang, bang, bang. Everyone's going to start opening again. So, do
Yes.
you feel that that everyone's waiting for that first thing to start and see how it goes?
Oh, look, I think it's a good idea. I mean, soccer and hockey aren't particularly huge impact sports. I mean, the passing the ball around, all those sorts of things. I actually think that's a good test case. A really good test case to see how it works. And it then gives us some idea of we can work out the pros and cons of what do we have to do to make it safe. I mean, you've got to have a test case to do that. It's like when we do the Olympic Games, we always have a tournament 3 months before to actually see what's going to break down. So I think it's a really good idea.
Okay, but this entire concept of playing behind closed doors seems to be dividing a lot of people. The one hand, you have the people sitting at home for whom this could be a very welcome distraction. Perhaps not in Australia, but most of the other countries around the world. Then you have the other skeptical lot, which says that this is actually only for the money, that everyone wants to get in because there's a lot of money in broadcast rights stuck in the clubs are bleeding money. This is in the case of football. And the third is the purist who says that what is sport without the atmosphere? Which side of the debate do you weigh in on?
Oh, everyone loves a crowd when you play. There's no doubt about that. But when we all grew up and we played, we'd go out on the park and we'd play against the other team. The only mum and dad would be there, and we'd still have a lot of fun and play for the sheer hell of it. But there is a lot of money in sport now. It's a massive business. There's no doubt about it. And that's entertainment, probably more so than actual sport itself. It's all entertainment. How that's going to come back without a crowd, I think I might have said to you, maybe it needs to be more like the American TV shows where they add in the crowd roaring and stuff like that when something happens to add a bit of atmosphere. Because it does seem to lack atmosphere when you're just watching two people or a team running around chasing a ball. I agree.
Mm. Okay, you spoke about Australia getting to phase 2 and then phase 3. So, how's Australian sport coped through all of this?
All sports are bleeding money at this stage. It's really, really, really difficult. The average club relies on sports over a canteen to bring money in, fees and all those sorts of things to play the game for the upkeep. So every single sport is just bleeding money at this stage. It's going to be a tough road back as to how it actually does. So this next 3 or 4 months is going to be an interesting way for clubs to try and how do we get our players back? How do we charge fees? How do we get them enjoying the game again? Because we can't play a full season. Because if we play a full season of hockey, it goes into December and it goes into cricket and all these other seasons. So it's every sport's trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we survive?
Okay, but just go back to March, and I reached out to you at that point of time asking you what you felt about the Olympics at that point of time. If you go back to March, Michael, it was
Yep.
one of the leading countries was Australia, who said, "Come what may, we are not sending our team to the Olympic Games." In a sense, that put a lot of pressure on the IOC to postpone the games, and it was brave from the Australian Olympic Committee, considering that one of their key members is a vice president of the IOC.
Correct. It's Olympic Games is obviously the epitome for every athlete. It's putting it off 1 year. I can feel we've got athletes training for 4 years for their one performance, which might be a 100-meter 10-second race. Oh, sorry, you've got to start next year. We've got to do it again. But that's the way it's got to be. I think the sanctity of life and how we treasure it is the most important thing. Sport's sport, and it's great fun, and it's it makes our lives and enriches ourselves. But the health of everybody has got to be critical in this area.
Okay, Michael Nobbs' daughter, Caitlin Nobbs, was actually just months away from emulating her dad and her mother, who is an Olympic gold medalist from the '88 Olympics, in being an Olympian. Personally, how disappointing is it for you and Lee to sort of see Caitlin's Olympic debut sort of pushed back? Because let's be fair, when you're at the doorstep of being an Olympian, it's one thing. 1 year later, you don't know. I'm not trying to be be a naysayer or something, but in sport you never know. So personally, as parents, as Olympian parents, how difficult has this thing been to see it getting postponed? Personally,
look, it's disappointing, because it's so close, you can feel it. But as I said to Caitlin the other day, I said, you're 22 years of age, whether you play 1, 2, 3 or 4 Olympics, it's really, you just do your best. And if you get the opportunity and you get to play the Olympic Games, that's just fantastic. But you're 22. You're sitting in Australia, probably the first or second best player in the country, one based on the last awards that they did. So there's a reasonable chance you keep your fitness, you do all the right things, you'll get another opportunity. If you don't, that's life. But I'm pretty confident she'll do okay. She's got some of my genes. She'll be okay.
I actually remember, Michael, that when you were out here coaching India, especially ahead of that 2012 Olympic qualifier, I remember this young shy girl who used to tag along with daddy everywhere, and she didn't like getting pulled into when the celebrations were happening, and she was very shy and used to go off into her room. And then now you have her winning the Australian Player of the Year award last year. And in fact, I remember when you were with us at Beyond for the Commonwealth Games, we actually got you because she made her debut, and we actually put her pictures up on screen and made you talk about her first match for Australia at the Continental Games. What an evolution!
Oh yes, look, she's we're really proud of her, and she's turned into a really nice human being as well. She's very generous, and but when you have girls, they're tough to handle. Let me tell you, they tend to be like their mothers. So very strong-willed, I should say, but really proud of her. Really proud. Can't wait to see what she does in the future.
Yes, but Michael, at the moment, the Olympics have got pushed by a year, but there's still question marks remaining. For someone like your daughter, who will now have to wait 1 year, how does this uncertainty affect her? Because what's coming out of Japan is, the games could still be cancelled if the vaccine isn't found. For first-time Olympians and those on the cusp of, achieving their dreams. The first dream is to go to the Olympics, and second is after that to be an Olympic medalist. When you're so close and there's so much anxiety, how do you deal with it? And how are you as parents, as sportspersons in the family, helping her deal with it?
Well, she's obviously just not a hockey player. She's studying a nursing degree as well. So she wants to do something outside of hockey, which is keeping her occupied at this stage, all those particular studies. But, the passion that she wants for the game, and she plays for the game, I mean, those things, the Olympic Games, are all out of her control anyway, and she understands that. But, I spoke to her today and I said, so what are you doing? She said, I'm trying to find a hockey field that I can break into so I can start running around and hitting a ball and playing hockey. And that means a lot to me because it just shows the passion of, she wants to run around and play hockey, just have fun. And that's what drives us all as sportsmen anyway. If you don't have fun, what the hell are you playing? So Olympic Games, it's out of her control and she understands that.
Australia, Michael, is a powerhouse when it comes to the Olympics. Australia is also a nation known for its sporting ability. But let's take three sports for whom a lot may change after this coronavirus pandemic when it comes to social distancing. One is your sport of hockey, one is football, and the other is swimming. In swimming, you've got to be in the water with other swimmers. Hockey and football, you've got to be sitting on a bench and right next to each other, so social distancing goes out of the window. How do sports like these adapt when you start training? You never know when you start training, but when you do, these are small things which will have to be at the back of your mind. Do these sports now have to come up with new regulations?
Well, we're already, I was looking at Alison Annan coaching some of her athletes last week, and they are coaching 10 at a time, and they're having all this social distancing. So they can start to do that. We're doing exactly the same now. We've got 10 athletes and that type of thing. But I mean, it really comes down to testing. I mean, if we can get a test that can be done within half an hour and we can test 100 people in half an hour, then you can feel reasonably confident and safe about the environment you're in. But until you actually know, it's just, you can't see a virus. It's just guesswork. If you want to put yourself at risk, well, I don't know whether you should. That you should put your friend at risk and things, that sort of thing. So it all comes down to the science. It's testing.
Okay. But Michael, as it stands, most of the people I've spoken to have sort of given up on 2020, especially when it comes to the international calendar. Now,
Totally.
for a lot of contact sports, a lot of team sports, let's just say sport in general, you can't keep practicing on a hockey pitch or on a tennis court. You need to go out there and compete. With competition not happening, with the vaccine not out yet, do you think if and when the Olympics happen, you could see some vastly different people or set of teams on the Olympic podium because it's a journey into the unknown?
It's going to be interesting. I agree. If you can't have international competition, it lowers the competition. It certainly does. I mean, you want to compete against the best. If you want to be the best, you have to compete against the best. If you don't have competition, it's not going to be brilliant. There's going to be a lot of interesting things happen. I agree, totally. But I think 2020 is completely history in terms of international competition. If you take the Pro League in hockey, for instance, I mean, that struggles for money at the best of times, and now with no crowds and no international travel and everything else, I mean, that's just history at this stage. So, and a lot of teams were relying on that for their kind of pre-Olympic preparation. So that's out completely. I don't know what they will do. How are you going to play against some team? I mean, we could play New Zealand 4,000 times because they're free of the virus. That's not particularly fun. So I don't know how they're going to do it.
Yeah, women's team did lose to them once. So just don't take them too lightly. But Michael, yeah, and there was a family connection, if I remember as well. I think your brother-in-law or someone was coaching.
Yeah, Mark Hago was coaching that. Yes, and now he's coaching the GB side. Yes, and Lee's sister is there as well. So it's a very big family connection.
Yeah,
it's really funny. Quite funny sometimes when Caitlin plays against the English team and she goes up and hugs Uncle Mark at the end of the game. It's quite fun.
Okay, but Michael, you spoke about the Pro League. How will hockey adapt? Because as you said, momentum is very key. A lot of people started looking at the Pro League, especially at the start of the year, looking where teams were. India did pretty well as well. But now that momentum has stopped. Teams haven't trained for a while. There's no momentum. It stopped. You got to start again. How long do you think it is going to take international teams to get back to those levels?
Maybe 6 to 9 months, I would think. It's a big effort to come back at this point in time. And I don't know whether they've got the money to do it either. I mean, that's the real criteria. You've got to fly to all these countries and do all that. I don't think they've got the money to do it. I mean, most economies are right on the back foot at this stage. So getting funding for, a sporting team to go and play a pro league or football league or anything would be enormously difficult.
Okay, considering the travel restrictions and the quarantines in place, you spoke about managing perhaps of having a few games against the Kiwis. But do you think this could actually work out in the favor of the European teams? Because there, inside the Eurozone, traveling is much easier. They just need to be on a bus from Belgium. You go to Amsterdam. What from Brussels? Probably a 3 hour
Correct.
drive. You
Yep,
think it could actually work out better this kind of situation for teams in Europe?
I do. I've always thought that. That's the thing. Being in Europe, you're so close to all the other countries. If you can get around the safety aspect of it and get some games, that will clearly make a big difference. I mean, we have to travel from Australia closest, or India is probably close, and New Zealand. I mean, playing India is obviously really good value as well, but then going to Europe is another kettle of fish completely. Yeah, it could, but we'll do okay. We'll be fine.
Yeah, good team.
We'll be okay.
Yeah, a good team.
So
How do you think this postponement though has hit India? Because it's been a long journey, but they're sort of starting to build up. We saw them at the Commonwealth and the Asian Games and the World Cup. Perhaps they weren't there yet. Start of the year, the way they played against Belgium, Netherlands, even Australia, a lot of people were sitting up and taking notice that this is finally an Indian team which can challenge for the Olympic podium. How do you think this is going to stop their momentum?
well, they're young. As I told you quite a few years ago, I said that the young kids that we brought through with Harendra, this will be your 2020 Olympic team. They will be in medal contention. They're sitting fourth in the world now, playing outstanding hockey and consistent. So the whole program that Dr. Batra put in all those years ago is bearing fruit now. How will they cope with it? Um, that's going to be interesting. Look, they're young and they're really keen. They're a very young side, so they're so enthusiastic. And Graham Reid is a good coach, and he knows how to handle these sort of players. But once again, they need competition. You have to play against the better teams in the world, otherwise you don't improve. And that's going to be a big issue. How do you get India to Europe? How do you get India to Australia? How do you get teams to get there? Because if you can't lock the virus down in India, no one's going to come. That's the problem.
Yes, and you're not going to. I don't think we're going to play Pakistan as well. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
I
not,
think
but
that's
not
going
sure
to
that, but
happen.
not sure that would help us at the moment. I mean, in terms of the hockey standards, India's way ahead.
Yeah. Oh, India are way ahead of Pakistan. Totally. I mean, every facet of the game. I mean, I cry when I see what happens in Pakistan, because Pakistan were one of the great nations of hockey, and there was nothing better than watching India Pakistan play. It was just a joy, and to see what's happened to them, it's just it's horrible. But I mean, hopefully they can fix it. But even India playing Pakistan would be better than India playing the Railways team or Namdaris or someone. Play someone. You got to have a
Interesting.
game. Yep.
Interesting. I don't know what the Indian government has to say about that. There's other issues involved there. But we've had a
Yes.
procession of coaches, and where you're saying where Pakistan is right now, India was there 2008 when we didn't qualify for the Olympics. So the journey
Mm.
started back then. There had been
Yep.
a procession of coaches. You were part of that
Mm.
journey as well. And now
Mm.
they've sort of stabilized, because it takes time to rebuild. The
Yep.
problem with Indian hockey, I've always said, was instant coffee. Everyone wanted the Olympic medal right
It's
then. But do you think
correct.
right now it's the core, those players who were there with you 2012 still around, the likes of Rupinder Pal, the likes of Srijesh, Manpreet, and even later the other youngsters coming in who have stayed around Akashdeep, Mandeep. So you think that's one thing, that while we've had problems off the pitch in terms of lots of coaches, a lot of your core players have stayed the same, and that's ultimately why India is now starting to peak like a bit like Belgium.
Well, that was a conscious decision that we made at the time when I put Manpreet in to say, look, he's going to be your Olympic captain one day, and you have to play 100, 200 games for your country to actually be a really good player. We made the problem with all the older players is their basics were pretty poor. I mean, they could dribble like magicians, but their basics were nowhere near as good as European teams or Australian teams. So when we were working with Harry Harendra, we said you have to work on getting these juniors coming through, because they're going to be your 2020 Olympic team. They have to have great basics. They've got good skills, but they have to do this development and they have to learn the new ways of playing. And I thought Harendra did an outstanding job of taking that second group of kids that you needed for the 2020 Olympic team, and that's the team that you've got now. Now, what did happen was was the Hockey India League was an outstanding thing that was brought into fruition. The Pro League, I'm not so certain because it's so costly, but generally now the coach that has got a good group of players with good basics, good understanding, and they know how to play. So, and that makes your job a whole lot easier than getting an old player that, causes problems, still want to stay in the team, but, they cause a hassle and all the rest of it. So now you've got a bunch of young kids. All they want to do is play and win. They're not after the glory and all the rest of it. So I'm really pleased to see some of these kids come through, especially Manpreet. He's been an outstanding captain, an outstanding young kid all the time that I've known him for the last 10 years.
Yes, hopefully we see them back in action soon. Hopefully we get to see you soon, Michael. It's been a while. Been a while. Hopefully, if Caitlin makes it to the Olympic team, and hopefully, if you're well, probably we'll get to see you in Tokyo next year. I don't think till then anyone's going to take the risk of traveling. Huh?
No, I don't think so. We'll see what happens, but it's good to see you again, and we'll certainly talk again.
Okay, Michael, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and all the best to you for the family, and keep those nerves in check as your daughter approaches the Olympics. Remember, she's a different individual. You are an Olympian hockey coach. Don't flutter her mind too much. I know her mother will be saying the same thing to her, Michael. But
absolutely,
all the best.
Thanks a lot, Diggy. Thanks a lot.